Tsale, it's story time. I'm in the mood for some one-act operas. Today's selection is part of a set of three operas that were written to be performed together but are often performed separately. Italian composer Giacomo Puccini wrote Il Trittico, or the Triptych, as three one-act operas with themes ranging from satirical humor to tragedy. We'll start with the third opera in the set. Yes, we're going backwards. This opera is based on text from The Divine Comedy, that ancient literary text written by Dante Alighieri. In this opera, classist prejudices are laid bare, and people learn a painful lesson when their greedy schemes backfire. Oh, and there's also a sweet love story highlighted by a very popular aria. Storytimers, grab a drink, relax, and join me for the story of the opera Gianni Schicchi. Once upon a time in Florence, Italy, there lived a wealthy man named Buoso Donati. Donati had money, properties, thriving businesses, but unfortunately, none of this could save him when he fell gravely ill. He succumbed to his illness, and as he lay in his deathbed, surrounded by family and loved ones, the scene was marred by talk of who would inherit what from Donati. One of his less affluent in laws tells the gathering about a rumor that he heard about Donati's will. Betto tells the family, guys, I've heard a very disturbing rumor. Family, from what I've heard, this uncle, brother, cousin of ours has sidelined all of us and left all of his major assets to a monastery. Storytimers, everyone in the room gasps audibly. What? How? When? A monastery? Does he know the plans we have for that money? Those properties. How are we supposed to survive? How will we carry on the famous Donati wealth and our social status? Oh, you cruel, wicked Donati. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Maybe there's a reason he cut them out of the will? Well, they suddenly realized that the only way for them to confirm or debunk this rumor is to find the will. Immediately, a frantic search begins. I mean, they are searching everywhere, practically turning his house upside down. Meanwhile, Donati is still lying there, deceased. Eventually, his nephew, Rinuccio, finds the will. I've got it, he yells triumphantly, and everyone excitedly gathers around him. What does it say? Did he really cut us off? Relax, relax, Rinuccio says. He's enjoying his 15 seconds of power. I'll be happy to show everyone the will, but first I have a request of you, mother. And he points at his mother, Zita, a cousin to Donati. Now, Zita is a big time snob, and she's anxious to inherit a huge chunk of Donati's wealth. So she's getting very impatient with her son's antics. She's like, son, you better stop wasting everyone's time here. Now, what is it? Venuccio says, okay, mom. Now, you know I'm really in love with my girlfriend, Lauretta. And I know you don't particularly care for her family because they're not rich, but I just want you to promise me that you will allow me to marry her. Zita is just annoyed at this point. She's like, son, I don't care if you marry Sugar Titi. Give me that will. A very happy Rinuccio hands over the will to his mother, and he sends someone to bring Lauretta and her father, Gianni Schicchi, to the house. The relatives hurriedly read through the will, and to their utter dismay, it turns out that the rumor is correct. Indeed, they have been left out of the will. And yes, Donati left his juiciest assets to a monastery. They are shocked and angry and trying to figure out how to get around it. By this time, Lauretta and her father, Schicchi, have arrived, and Rinuccio is still floating on a love cloud, and he suggests that the family should allow his future father-in-law to take a look at the will and see if there's something he can advise as to how they can make this work in their favor. Oh, well, the snobbish family quickly switches into upper class mode, and they completely reject the suggestion. Zita is like, my son, how could you suggest such a thing? We don't want a peasant like him anywhere near this will. And in fact, on second thought, we don't want you marrying his low class daughter either. Ouch. Zita, dang. Dang, Zita. Schicchi, upon hearing this, does the slow head turn, and he's like, who the heck do you think you're talking to? You insult me and my daughter so brazenly? Lauretta, come, you will not marry this boy. You have more class than his family could ever buy. Come on, let's go. Now, those of us who hear, come on, let's go, in African father voice, we know that the situation is done. The end. That's it. Pick your bag. Let's move. But maybe Italian father voice is more gentle. Because guess what Lauretta does? She says, Daddy, please, I love him. He's the only one I want to marry. And if you don't let me marry him, I will throw myself into the Odor River. Yes, yes. This is where she sings the aria, Oh mio bambino caro, meaning, oh, my dear father. Now, you know fathers have a soft spot for their daughters. Schicchi looks at his daughter, sighs deeply, and agrees to stay at Donati's house. And the family reluctantly agrees to allow him to examine the will. Schicchi looks at the will for some time. He reads it from front to back, turns it upside down and around, and finally he declares, Yep, you guys are screwed. But then it occurs to him that this could be a chance for him to put his street smarts to good use. He says, Wait a minute. I think there actually could be a way out here, but you will have to follow my instructions to the letter. Do you understand? The greedy relatives all nod in agreement. Yes, yes, Schicchi, whatever you say, yes, we agree. Schicchi knows that his plan is going to work because there's no one more desperate than a greedy wannabe heir. First, Schicchi asks Lauretta to wait outside. Your ears are too innocent for this, my dear daughter. Go outside and get some fresh air. I'll call you back in soon. Lauretta leaves, and Schicchi outlines his plan. First and foremost, he says, nobody outside of all of us in this room should be informed of Donati's death until this plan is fully executed. Secondly, he says, we need to move his body to another room. We can't risk anyone coming in here and seeing his remains. Two of the relatives promptly comply to this directive, and they moved Donati's body to another room. Just then, there's a knock at the door. The relatives forgot that they summoned the doctor to come to the house and declare Donati dead. So Schicchi quickly disappears behind the bed curtains so that he can communicate with the doctor as though he is Donati. He's like, Oh, Doc, thank you for coming so quickly. You know, I must have fallen so deeply asleep that my relatives thought I had gone to meet my maker. But I'm actually fine and I'm alive and well, as you can tell. Thank you so much for coming, but your services are not needed today. The doctor listens to him and says, all right, Sir Donati. I'll leave you to recuperate and rest. And I'm very, very glad that you're okay. And he promptly leaves. And everyone breathes a sigh of relief. Whew. Schicchi says, Now, let's continue with the plan. You will call a notary to come here. I will pose as Donati, and I will tell the notary that I want to amend my will. Once the changes are made, then you can announce Donati's sudden demise, and you can all go your separate ways with your new inheritance. Oh, the family members are excited. They immediately started dividing the inheritance among themselves. Donati's widow wants several plots of land. One of his cousins wants several of his many houses. All of them want an equal share of his stacks of cash. They went on and on and on until they got to Donati's most valuable possessions, his mega mansion, his mule, and his processing mills. These are the most valuable assets of all. Just as the family members are squabbling over who gets the biggest bundle, they hear the town bells ringing. The distraction of the bells actually makes them rethink their fight over Donati's most prized possessions, and they agree that Schicchi should be the one to decide who gets them. Schicchi's like, Oh, sure, I can decide that. No problem. So they cover his head with a big cap, tie something around his chin just to obscure his face a lot more, and they get him in the bed, cover him with the bed sheets and blankets, and basically he's unrecognizable, and he could easily pass for Donati. He then informs the family that they need to consider one very important important fact: the penalty for forging a will. He's like, just so you know, if you're caught forging a will, your hand will be cut off and you'll be exiled from Firenze. So it's important that you follow everything I say and do carefully. Do you understand? And we all keep the secret. Agreed? Oh, yes, 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 we agree. The family is way too excited. Of course they agree. They're about to inherit millions of euros. The notary arrives right on time with witnesses, and they begin the process of crafting the will. So Schicchi plays his role as Donati. He renounces any previous wills, and he begins to tell the notary how he would like to distribute his wealth amongst his relatives. Oh, the relatives are smiling as Schicchi mentions each of their names to the notary and tells the notary who gets what. All they can see is euro signs flashing in front of their eyes. Then he finally comes to the highest valued assets: the mega mansion, the mule, and the mills. And the relatives are waiting with bated breath to find out who will get these coveted assets. And Schicchi gives a dramatic pause, yawns slowly, and says, I leave these items to my trusted, loyal, devoted, lifelong friend, Gianni Schicchi. You can imagine the looks on the faces of Donati's relatives. There's absolutely nothing they can say or do because Schicchi has already warned them of the consequences of forgery. So they just have to watch in silence as the notary and the witnesses complete the will, sign and seal it, making it official and legally binding. The notary leaves and the relatives go wild. They start looting the mansion, which now belongs to Schicchi, so he chases them out. Get out of my house. Lauretta and Rinuccio are so happy now because now Lauretta is the daughter of a rich man and Rinuccio also inherited some small coins from his uncle's estate, so they can plan a nice wedding. And Schicchi knows that his trick was wrong, but come on, wasn't it better than giving all the wealth to the greedy relatives? So, in a nutshell, that's Gianni Schicchi. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Cheers!